Hello friends, how are you? Hope you are doing great. I, CA Kamakshi Khandelwal, welcome you all to my next session in GST. Basis on your recommendation, I have kept the topic for today's discussion as how to fill GST Tran 1. With just a few days left for GST to be implemented in India, it is important for all of us to gear ourselves for the transition. Proper filing of GST Tran 1 is very important. We have to make sure that all our credits pertaining to excise, service tax, VAT, duly reflected in the respective returns are properly carried forward in GST Tran 1. Also, if any new credit is available to us, that is also being taken care of so that after transition, there is no loss to the company with respect to the stock held on the appointed date. So, let's start. GST Tran 1 is required to be filled state-wise within 90 days from the appointed date. So, if the appointed day is July 1, 2017, then the GST Tran 1 is required to be filled latest by 30th September 2017. Now coming over to the first point, GSTIN. In this, the user needs to enter the GSTIN number of the state in which he is registered. In the second point, the user has to enter the legal name of the registered person as mentioned in its PAN number. If the user has any trade name, then the same can be filled in the third point. Now coming over to the fourth point, it says whether all the returns required under existing law for the period of 6 months immediately preceding the appointed date have been furnished, yes or no. In my webinar on transitional provisions, I had already told you that if we want to carry forward our credits, then it is mandatory to file all the returns pertaining to 6 months before the appointed date. That means if the appointed date is July 1, 2017, then all the returns pertaining to VAT, excise, service tax for the period January to July 2017 must be filed on time. If any of the return is not furnished, then the credit will not be allowed to be carried forward. Now, next point, fifth point, amount of tax credit carried forward in the return filed under the existing law. Under this, subpoint A, amount of SENVAT credit carried forward to electronic credit ledger as central tax. Under this point, the user has to fill the amount of SENVAT credit carried forward and reflected in the last filed excise and service tax return. This point is required to be filled by those manufacturer or service providers who have carried forward balance of basic excise duty, special excise duty, CVD, SAD, service tax, the duties of excise on textile and textile articles, national calamity contingent duty, and duly reflected in their excise and service tax return. And it also applies to a manufacturer or a service provider who is engaged in the manufacture or provision of both taxable as well as exempted goods or services. Under this subpoint, the credit relating to taxable goods or services is required to be filled in. Now, in column number 2, the user has to enter the existing registration number under central excise and service tax. In column 3, the user has to fill the tax period to which the last return filed under the existing law pertains. Meaning, in case of service tax, my tax period shall be half yearly, and in the case of excise, my tax period shall be monthly. Now, in column number 4, the user has to fill the date of last return filed in excise and service tax. In column number 5, the user has to enter the amount of SENVAT credit carried forward in the said last return. In column number 6, the user has to enter the SENVAT credit admissible as ITC of central tax in accordance with the transitional provisions. Generally, the value filled in column number 5 and column number 6 would be the same. Now, coming over to the next subpoint B, Details of statutory forms received for which the credit is being carried forward. Under this subpoint, the user has to fill the details of various statutory forms received like C form, F form, H form, I form during the period 1st April 2015 to 30th June 2017. In the first column, the user has to fill the TIN number and the name of the issuer, the serial number of the form along with the amount and applicable VAT rate. Now, coming on to the next subpoint C. Amount of credit carried forward to electronic credit ledger as state or union territory tax. Under this point, the user has to fill the details of amount of tax credit of VAT and entry tax carried forward in its last filed VAT and entry tax return for a particular state. In column number 1, the user has to enter the VAT registration number. In column number 2, the user has to enter the balance of ITC of VAT and entry tax filed in the last return. In column number 3 and 5, the user has to enter the turnover for which C form and F form are pending to be received. And in column number 4 and 6, the amount of tax payable in respect of turnover filled in column number 3 and 5 respectively. Now in column number 7, the user has to calculate and enter the ITC reversal related to the pending C form and F forms. In column number 8 and 9, the user has to fill the value of turnover for which H form or I forms are pending to be received along with the tax payable thereon. Then in column number 10, the final amount of ITC that can be carried forward will be calculated by subtracting the amount of tax payable on pending C form, F form and H or I form as mentioned in column number 4, 6 and 9 respectively from the total balance of ITC carried forward in the last return as mentioned in column number 2 together with the reversal of ITC as mentioned in column number 7. So this is the amount of VAT or entry tax that can be carried forward. Hope I am clear to all on this. Next, moving over to the next point. 6th, details of capital goods for which unavailed credit has not been carried forward under the existing law. In point number 5, we have filled the total amount of SENVAT credit availed in respect of inputs, capital goods and input services. Now, in point number 6, we have to declare the details of those capital goods on which full 100% credit has not been availed. For example, if I purchased a machinery on 10th April 2017, then I am eligible to avail only 50% credit in the financial year 17-18. In this point, we can claim the remaining balance of the SENVAT credit. Under subpoint A, the user has to fill the amount of unavailed SENVAT credit in respect of capital goods carried forward to the electronic credit ledger as central tax. In this, the user has to fill the invoice number and invoice date in column number 2 and 3. In column number 4, the user has to fill the central excise registration number of the supplier, and in column number 5, he has to fill his own central excise registration number or service tax registration number of the place where he has received the capital goods. In column number 6, the user has to enter the value of the capital goods purchased along with its applicable duty or taxes paid on it, like excise duty and CVD in column number 7 and SAD in column number 8. Then in column number 9, the user has to fill the total eligible SENVAT credit under the existing law. In column number 10, the amount of SENVAT credit availed. Then in column number 11, the amount of SENVAT credit yet to be availed will be calculated by subtracting the values written in column number 10 from column number 9. For example, if I have purchased a machinery worth 1 lakh on 10th April 2017 on which the excise duty paid is 12%, then in column number 9, I will write the total amount of SEMRET credit as rupees 12,000, 1 lakh into 12%. In column number 10, 50% of 12,000, that is 6,000 will come, and the balance amount of SEMRET credit of rupees 6,000 will come in column number 11. Hope this is understood. Then subpoint B, the user has to enter the amount of unavailed input tax credit carried forward to the electronic credit ledger as state or union territory tax. In this, the details are required to be filled in the same manner as elaborated above. Now coming over to the next point. Point number 7, details of the inputs held in stock in terms of section 140 subsection 3, 140 subsection 4 clause B and section 140 subsection 6. Under this point, the user has to fill the details of those inputs held in stock but the credit on which has not been availed due to certain conditions or limitations in the existing law. This section is applicable to persons who were either unregistered under the existing law or a manufacturer or the provider of exempted goods or services, or a works contractor, or a first stage dealer, or a second stage dealer, or a registered importer, or a depot of a manufacturer, and they are registered in GST. Also, if a manufacturer or a service provider is engaged in the provision of exempted goods or services, then the user has to fill in the details in this point only. So, in point number A, the user has to fill the amount of duties and taxes on inputs claimed as credit, excluding the credit under table 5A and 7A. Case A, where the duty paid invoices or any other document is available. In this, in column number 2, the user has to mention the 6-digit HSN code of the inputs held in stock or inputs contained in semi-finished or finished goods held in stock. In column number 3, 4 and 5, the user has to enter the unit, quantity and value of the inputs. In column number 6, the user has to fill the eligible duties paid on such inputs. Case B, where the duty paid invoices are not available, applicable only for person other than a manufacturer or service provider. So this point is required to be filled by a trader claiming credit of the duties of excise and CVD. Now coming to the next subpoint B, amount of VAT and entry tax paid on inputs supported by invoices or documents evidencing payment of tax carried forward to electronic credit ledger as CGST or UTGST. In this point, the user has to fill the details of VAT and entry tax paid on inputs for which the invoices or documents evidencing the payment of duty is available. In this, all things explained as above needs to be filled, except that in column number 6, 7 and 8, the user has to fill the total ITC claimed under the earlier law, the total ITC related to exempt sales not claimed under the earlier law, and the total ITC admissible as SGST or UTGST respectively. Now coming over to the next subpoint C, stock of goods not supported by invoices or documents evidencing payment of tax to be there only in states having VAT at single point. Now what is the meaning of VAT at single point? VAT at single point means the tax on such goods shall be paid by the first importer and manufacturer only. At subsequent stages, such goods should be sold as tax-free even if there is value addition of such goods at subsequent stages. This type of tax is applicable in the state of Punjab. So, in respect of these goods where no duty paying documents is available, the user has to enter the description, quantity, unit, value and the tax paid in column number 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 respectively. Now moving over to the next point. Point number 8. Details of transfer of SEMRET credit for registered person having centralized registration under existing law. This point is applicable only to those assessees having centralized registration in the service tax, and they want to distribute the credit in other states as mentioned in their registration certificate. So, in column number 2, 3 and 4, the user has to fill its centralized service tax registration number, the tax period for which the return is filed, and the date of filing of the return respectively. In column number 5, the user has to enter the total amount of Senvet credit as reported in the last return. In column number 6, the user has to enter the GSTIN number of his branches located in different states to whom it want to distribute the credit. For example, I am a service provider having centralized registration in Delhi and other branches in Mumbai, Chennai, Haryana and West Bengal. So, in column number 6, I would enter my GSTIN number of Mumbai, Chennai, Haryana and West Bengal. Next, in column number 7 and 8, the user has to enter the distribution invoice number and date through which the credit is to be distributed. Lastly, in column number 9, the amount of ITC to be transferred is to be entered. Coming over to the next point, point number 9. Details of goods sent to the job worker and held in his stock on behalf of the principal. This point is required to be filled by a principal as well as the job worker in respect of the goods sent on job work. Subpoint A is required to be filled by the principal and subpoint B is required to be filled by the job worker. In subpoint A, the principal has to give details of the GSTIN number of the job worker in case he is registered, the details of challan number, challan date and the type of goods sent for job work like inputs, semi-finished goods or finished goods are required to be given in column number 2, 3 and 4. In column number 7 to 11, the user has to fill in the HSN code of the goods sent, its description, unit, quantity and value. The same details as explained above are required to be filled by the job worker in subpoint B. Now, coming over to the next point. Point number 10. Details of goods held in stock as agent on the behalf of the principal under section 142 subsection 14 of the SGST Act. So, this point is required to be filled in case the goods are sent to an agent by a principal. The agent is required to provide the details of the GSTIN number of the principal, the details of the goods held like description, unit, quantity, value and the amount of input tax to be taken. The agent will fill in the details of the amount of input tax to be taken only if the agent is registered and the principal is not availing the credit on such goods or has reversed the credit availed on such goods. Now, next point, point number 11. Details of credit availed in terms of section 142 subsection 11 clause C. This point is required to be filled by a works contractor or any other business entity which has paid VAT and service tax both on services provided or received by it. For example, the AMC services, works contract services, etc. Such entities shall be entitled to take the credit of VAT paid as SGST or the service tax paid as CGST credit. In this respect, such entities have to mention their VAT and service tax registration number in column number 2 and 3, invoice number, invoice date and the total tax paid in column number 4, 5 and 6 respectively. The amount of VAT paid taken as SGST credit or the service tax paid as central tax credit in column number 7. Last point, point number 12. Details of goods sent on approval basis 6 months prior to the appointed day. In this point, the user needs to enter the details of goods sent on approval basis. The user needs to enter the document number and document date in column number 2 and 3, GSTI number of the receiver if the recipient is registered, the name and address of the recipient, details of the goods sent on approval like HSN code of the goods, its description, unit, quantity and value in column number 6 to 10. The only point to be taken care of is that the goods sent on approval should not be more than 6 months old. After that, the user has to put his name and designation and affix his digital signature for uploading the form GST Tran 1 on the portal. So this finishes up with the procedure to file GST Tran 1. The user needs to identify under which category he is falling. That is, whether he is a normal manufacturer or service provider, or he is a trader who wishes to avail the new credit, or he is a job worker, etc. Accordingly, he has to fill up the details in this form. Now there is one more form GST Tran 2. This form is required to be filled by a trader availing new credits in respect of stock for which he do not possess any invoice or any other duty paying document. Such a trader is supposed to file this statement for 6 tax period during which the scheme is in operation, indicating therein the details of supplies of goods effected during the tax period, like the opening stock, outward supply made during each month and the closing stock. I hope you all found the content useful. In case if you have any queries, you can contact me at my mail ID. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel CA Kamakshi Khandelwal for more videos on GST. Thank you. Have a nice day.